The word filthy sliced through the air like a blade, spat from her mother's lips in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner. Sarah, 25, froze, her fork hovering over a plate of untouched mashed potatoes, her heart pounding so loud it drowned out the clinking of glasses. Across the table, her cousins stared, their eyes wide with shock, while her father looked away, his jaw tight, as if he could will the moment to vanish. It wasn't just the word, it was the venom behind it, the way her mother's face contorted with disgust, as if Sarah's very existence was an offense. She'd come out to her family 2 months ago, trembling as she told them about Lena, the woman who made her feel alive for the first time in years. She'd hoped for understanding, maybe even acceptance, but instead, her mother had waited for this moment. A family gathering in their small Ohio town, to publicly brand her daughter as something vile. Sarah's chest tightened, her breath shallow. She wanted to scream, to run, to erase the image of her mother's sneer, but all she could do was push her chair back, the screech of wood against the floor echoing in the stunned silence. Lena, sitting beside her, reached for her hand under the table, her touch warm and steady, a lifeline in the storm. At 26, Lena was everything Sarah wasn't. Bold, unapologetic, with a quiet strength that made Sarah feel safe. But even Lena's grip couldn't stop the tears burning in Sarah's eyes as she stood, grabbed her coat, and fled into the cold November night. The small town of Millfield, Ohio, felt suffocating as they drove away, the streetlights blurring through Sarah's tears. Lena didn't speak, just kept one hand on the wheel and the other on Sarah's knee, her presence a silent promise. I'm here. They'd been together for a year, meeting at a community art gallery in Columbus where Lena's photographs, raw, vivid images of city life, had caught Sarah's eye. Sarah, a quiet bookstore clerk with a love for poetry, had been drawn to Lena's intensity, her ability to see beauty in the broken. Now, as they sped toward Columbus, Sarah wondered if she'd ever feel whole again. Back at their shared apartment, Sarah collapsed onto the couch, her sobs breaking free. Lena knelt beside her, brushing strands of brown hair from her face. You are not what she called you, Lena whispered, her voice fierce yet soft. You are enough. You are everything. Sarah wanted to believe her, but the word filthy echoed in her mind, a wound that wouldn't close. She clung to Lena, her anchor, but deep down, she feared her family's rejection was only the beginning. The next morning, Sarah woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Lena humming in the kitchen. Sunlight streamed through the window, casting a warm glow on the walls covered in Lena's photos, moments of joy, pain, and resilience captured in black and white. Sarah traced her fingers over a picture of them at a pride festival, laughing under a rainbow flag. That day she'd felt free, but now freedom seemed like a fragile dream. We can't go back, Sarah said, her voice hoarse as she joined Lena at the table. Lena set down her mug, her dark eyes searching Sarah's face. We don't have to, she replied. But we need to figure out what comes next. Sarah nodded, though her heart ached. She'd always been close to her family, especially her younger sister, Emily, who'd been too stunned to speak at dinner. The thought of losing them forever felt like a betrayal of her own blood. Over the next few weeks, Sarah threw herself into work at the bookstore, losing herself in shelving novels and helping customers find their next read. But every quiet moment brought her mother's words rushing back. Lena, meanwhile, was a whirlwind of action. She suggested they join a local support group for queer couples, a place where Sarah could process her pain. At first, Sarah resisted, afraid of being seen as weak, but Lena's gentle persistence won out. The group, held in a cozy community center, was filled with stories, some heartbreaking, some hopeful. Sarah listened to a trans woman talk about rebuilding her life after being disowned, and a non-binary couple share how they'd found a chosen family. Slowly, Sarah began to speak, her voice shaky but growing stronger each week. One evening as they walked home through the crisp December air, Lena stopped under a street lamp, pulling Sarah close. You're not alone in this, she said, her breath visible in the cold. We're building something new together. Sarah looked into Lena's eyes, seeing the same fierce love that had drawn her in from the start. For the first time since that awful night, she felt a spark of hope. But hope was fragile. A week later, Sarah received a text from Emily. I miss you. I don't know what to say, but I'm sorry. Sarah stared at the message, her heart torn between longing and anger. She wanted to reply to bridge the gap, but the memory of her mother's voice held her back. Lena, sensing her hesitation, suggested they meet Emily somewhere neutral, like a cafe in Columbus. She's reaching out, Lena said. That's a start. The meeting was awkward, the air thick with unspoken words. Emily, just 19, fidgeted with her coffee cup, her eyes red from crying. I didn't know Mom would do that, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I want to understand, Sarah. I want to try. Sarah's throat tightened, but Lena's hand on hers gave her the courage to speak. She told Emily about her love for Lena, about the joy and fear of being true to herself. Emily listened, her expression softening, and for a moment, Sarah saw the sister she'd always known. As they left the cafe, Sarah felt a weight lift, but the road ahead was uncertain. Her mother's silence loomed large, and the rest of her family hadn't reached out. Lena, ever the optimist, suggested they focus on building their own life, maybe even plan a trip to celebrate their anniversary. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming, something that would test their love and resilience in ways they couldn't yet imagine. Winter settled over Columbus like a heavy blanket, the city's streets glittering with holiday lights that felt at odds with Sarah's inner turmoil. She and Lena spent their days navigating the delicate balance of healing and surviving. The support group became a lifeline, a place where Sarah could voice her fears without judgment. But the wound from her mother's words still festered, raw and unhealed. Lena, ever the planner, threw herself into making their apartment a sanctuary. She hung new photos, snapshots of their life together, from quiet mornings drinking coffee to late-night dance parties in their living room. Each image was a reminder of what they were fighting for. But Sarah struggled to match Lena's optimism. At night she'd lie awake, replaying that Thanksgiving dinner, wondering if she'd ever been truly seen by her family. One snowy afternoon, Sarah found a letter slipped under their apartment door. Her heart sank as she recognized her father's handwriting. She hadn't heard from him since that night, his silence a quiet betrayal. With Lena by her side, she opened it, her hands trembling. The letter was short, formal, almost clinical. Sarah, I don't understand your choices, but I don't want to lose you. Let's talk. Dad. No apology, no warmth, just a plea that felt more like duty than love. Sarah crumpled the paper, tears stinging her eyes. He doesn't get it, she said, her voice breaking. Lena pulled her close, her arms a steady anchor. He's trying, she said softly. That's more than your mom's done. They decided to meet her father at a diner on the outskirts of town, a neutral space where the weight of family history wouldn't suffocate them. The diner smelled of grease and coffee, its red vinyl booths worn but comforting. Sarah's father, Tom, sat across from them, his hands clasped tightly around a mug. At 50, he looked older than Sarah remembered, his face lined with worry. I don't know how to fix this, he admitted, his voice low. Your mom, she's stubborn. But I see how happy Lena makes you. Sarah's throat tightened, torn between gratitude and resentment. It wasn't enough, but it was something. Lena, sensing the tension, spoke up, her voice calm but firm. Mr. Carter, we're not asking for approval. We just want respect. Tom nodded, his eyes flickering with something like regret. The conversation was stilted, but it ended with a promise to keep talking. As they left, Sarah felt a flicker of hope, though it was tinged with caution. Her father's effort was a step, but her mother's absence loomed like a shadow. Back at the apartment, Lena suggested they channel their energy into something positive. She proposed they volunteer at a local LGBTQ+ youth center, a place where they could give back and find community. Sarah hesitated, unsure if she had the strength to help others when she was still hurting. But Lena's enthusiasm was infectious, and soon they were spending weekends at the center, organizing art workshops and listening to teens share their own struggles. One girl, Mia, reminded Sarah of herself. Quiet, unsure, grappling with her identity in a world that felt hostile. Helping Mia find her voice gave Sarah a sense of purpose, a reminder that she wasn't alone. But the past wasn't done with them. One evening, as they were leaving the youth center, Sarah's phone buzzed with a call from an unknown number. She answered, her heart racing, only to hear her mother's voice, cold, unyielding. "You need to come home," she said. "We need to talk about this phase you're going through." Sarah's blood boiled. A phase. After everything, her mother still saw her love for Lena as something temporary, something to be fixed. She hung up, her hands shaking, and turned to Lena, who'd overheard the call. "She doesn't get to do this," Sarah said, her voice trembling with anger. "She doesn't get to pretend I'm broken." Lena's eyes burned with the same fire. "Then let's show her you're not," she said. They spent the night talking, planning, dreaming of a future where they could live openly, unapologetically. Lena suggested they document their journey. Her photos, Sarah's words. A project to share their story with others. Sarah loved the idea, but doubt gnawed at her. Could she be that brave? Could she face the world's judgment when her own family's rejection still stung? The next day they started small, posting a photo of themselves on social media with a caption Sarah wrote. "We are not a phase. We are love." The response was overwhelming. Support from friends, strangers, even a few distant cousins who'd been silent since Thanksgiving. But there were also cruel comments, echoes of her mother's words, calling their love unnatural, wrong. Sarah wanted to hide, but Lena held her hand, her voice steady. "This is our truth," she said. "Let them talk." As January unfolded, Sarah felt herself changing. The support group, the youth center, Lena's unwavering love. They were stitching her back together, piece by piece. But her mother's call lingered. A reminder that some wounds wouldn't heal easily. When Emily texted again, asking to meet, Sarah agreed, hoping her sister could be a bridge to the family. The meeting was emotional, with Emily admitting she'd been reading about queer identities, trying to understand. "I don't want to lose you," she said, tears streaming down her face. Sarah hugged her, feeling a piece of her heart mend. But the real test was coming. Lena had an idea, a bold, risky one. She wanted to invite Sarah's family to an art gallery event, where she'd be showcasing her photos, including a series about their love story. Sarah was terrified, but Lena's conviction was unshakable. "They need to see us," she said. "Not just hear about us, but see who we are." Sarah agreed, her heart pounding with equal parts fear and determination. The event was set for March, giving them 2 months to prepare and to brace for whatever came next. The Columbus winter deepened, snow piling high outside their apartment, but inside Sarah and Lena were building something unstoppable. Lena's gallery event became their focus, a beacon of purpose in the chaos of family tension. Lena spent hours in her makeshift darkroom, developing photos that captured their love, moments of laughter, quiet glances, hands clasped against the world. Sarah, meanwhile, poured her heart into writing captions for each image, her words raw and poetic, weaving their story into something tangible, something that could stand against her mother's hate. But the weight of that hate still lingered. Sarah's mother hadn't called again, but her silence was louder than words. Sarah tried to focus on the present, on Lena, on the youth center, on the support group, but memories of Thanksgiving crept in unbidden. She'd see her mother's face in nightmares, hear filthy, whispered in the quiet moments before sleep. Lena noticed the shadows under Sarah's eyes and made it her mission to keep her grounded. One night, she surprised Sarah with a candlelit dinner in their living room, complete with takeout from their favorite Thai place. "We're stronger than her words," Lena said, raising a glass of cheap wine. Sarah smiled, but the knot in her chest didn't loosen. The youth center became a refuge. Sarah grew close to Mia, the shy teen who'd reminded her of herself. Mia was 16, grappling with her bisexuality in a conservative family, and Sarah found herself mentoring her, sharing her own story. One afternoon, as they painted posters for a Pride event, Mia asked, "How do you keep going when your family doesn't get it?" Sarah paused, paintbrush in hand, and thought of Lena. "You find people who see you," she said, "and you hold on tight." As the gallery event approached, Sarah's nerves frayed. Inviting her family felt like walking into a lion's den. Lena, ever practical, helped her draft the invitations, keeping them simple but heartfelt. "We're sharing our story through art. Please come see who we are." They sent one to Emily, her father, and, after much debate, her mother. Sarah didn't expect a response, but the act of sending it felt like defiance, a reclaiming of her voice. Emily replied immediately, promising to be there. Her father sent a brief text. "I'll try." Her mother predictably said nothing. Sarah tried to focus on the event, helping Lena arrange the gallery space. A small trendy venue in Columbus's Arts District. The walls were lined with Lena's photos, each one a piece of their journey. Sarah laughing at a street fair, Lena's silhouette against a sunset, their hands intertwined at a protest. Sarah's captions hung beside them, her words bearing her soul. "Love is not a sin. It's a revolution." The night before the event, Sarah couldn't sleep. She sat on the couch, staring at a photo of her and Lena at the Pride Festival, their faces painted with glitter. Lena found her there, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "What if they don't come?" Sarah whispered. Lena kissed her forehead. "Then we still have each other. And everyone else who shows up." Sarah nodded, clinging to Lena's certainty. The gallery event was a whirlwind. Friends from the support group filled the room, their laughter and warmth a stark contrast to Sarah's memories of Thanksgiving. Mia and other teens from the youth center came, their eyes wide as they studied Lena's photos. Emily arrived early, hugging Sarah tightly and whispering, "I'm proud of you." Sarah's heart swelled, but her eyes kept darting to the door, hoping and dreading her parents' arrival. Her father showed up halfway through, his presence awkward but earnest. He walked through the exhibit, reading every caption, studying every photo. When he reached Sarah and Lena, his eyes were misty. "I didn't know," he said, his voice rough. "I didn't know how much you two mean to each other." Sarah wanted to cry, to hug him, but years of distance held her back. Instead she nodded, letting Lena take the lead. Lena, ever gracious, thanked him for coming, her voice steady but warm. Her mother didn't show. Sarah had expected it, but the absence still stung, a fresh cut on an old wound. As the night wound down, Sarah stood by Lena's side, watching strangers admire their story. A woman in her 40s approached, tears in her eyes, and said, "This reminds me of me and my wife 20 years ago. Thank you for being so brave." Sarah's throat tightened, and for the first time she felt like her pain had a purpose. But the night wasn't over. As they were packing up, Sarah's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I saw the photos online. We need to talk." "Mom." Sarah's heart stopped. Her mother had seen the event through a friend's social media post. The words were cold, but they were contact, an opening or a trap. Lena read the text over her shoulder, her jaw tight. "What do you want to do?" she asked. Sarah didn't know. Part of her wanted to ignore it, to protect the fragile peace they'd built. But another part, the part that still loved her mother, wanted answers. They decided to meet her mother at a park the next day, a public space where Sarah felt safe. The meeting was tense, the air heavy with unspoken history. Her mother, Linda, sat on a bench, her face a mask of restraint. "I don't understand you," she said, her voice clipped. "But I don't want you out of my life." Sarah's heart raced, torn between hope and skepticism. Lena, sitting beside her, squeezed her hand, a silent reminder of her strength. The conversation was short, strained, but it ended with a promise to try again. As they walked away, Sarah felt a strange mix of relief and unease. Her mother's words were a start, but they weren't acceptance. Lena, sensing her turmoil, pulled her into a hug. "We're not done fighting," she said. "But we're doing it together." Sarah nodded, her heart heavy but resolute. The gallery event had shown her their love could move others, maybe, just maybe, it could move her family too. Spring crept into Columbus, the city blooming with new life, but Sarah's heart remained caught in a tug-of-war between hope and doubt. Her mother's text and their brief park meeting lingered like a half-finished song, its notes unresolved. Linda had promised to try, but her version of trying was sporadic texts, formal, distant, never addressing the core of Sarah's pain. Each message felt like a test, and Sarah wasn't sure she was passing. Lena, meanwhile, was a force of nature. The gallery event had sparked something in her, a fire to keep sharing their story. She started a blog, combining her photos with Sarah's writing, documenting their journey as a queer couple in a world that didn't always welcome them. The blog gained traction, drawing comments from across the country, some hateful, but many full of gratitude. Sarah read a message from a teen in Texas. Your story makes me feel less alone. It hit her hard, reminding her why they were doing this. But every step forward felt like a tightrope walk, with her mother's judgment waiting to pull her down. At the youth center, Sarah and Lena threw themselves into planning a spring pride event, a festival for queer teens to celebrate their identities. Sarah found solace in the work, especially with Mia, who was slowly coming out of her shell. One day, as they hung rainbow banners, Mia confessed she told her parents about her bisexuality. They didn't kick me out, she said, her voice trembling. But they don't talk about it. Sarah hugged her, her own pain mirrored in Mia's eyes. Keep showing them who you are, she said. It's all we can do. Emily became a regular presence, visiting their apartment and joining them at the youth center. Her support was a balm, but it also highlighted the gap left by their parents. Sarah's father had called a few times, his conversations awkward but kind, but her mother's texts grew less frequent, each one colder than the last. Sarah tried to focus on the present, on Lena, on the community they were building, but the ache for her mother's acceptance never faded. One evening, Lena suggested they take a weekend trip to celebrate their second anniversary. Somewhere new, she said, her eyes sparkling. Let's make memories that are just ours. They chose a small cabin in Hocking Hills, a few hours from Columbus, surrounded by forests and waterfalls. The trip was a needed escape, a chance to breathe. They hiked through misty trails, cooked over a fire, and made love under a canopy of stars. For those 2 days, Sarah felt free, her mother's voice drowned out by Lena's laughter and the rustle of leaves. But reality waited. Back in Columbus, Sarah found a voicemail from her mother, her tone sharp. I heard about your blog. You're airing our family's business for the world to see. Sarah's stomach dropped. She hadn't mentioned her family directly in her writing, but the truth was there, woven into her words. Lena, furious, urged Sarah to stand her ground. You're not airing anything, she said. You're telling your truth. Sarah nodded, but fear gnawed at her. What if her mother cut her off completely? They decided to confront the issue head-on. Sarah called her mother, proposing another meeting, this time at their apartment. It was a bold move, inviting Linda into their space, but Sarah wanted her to see their life, their love up close. Lena spent the day cleaning, hanging new photos, making the apartment a testament to their bond. Sarah, meanwhile, prepared herself for battle, her heart racing with every possible outcome. Linda arrived on a rainy afternoon, her face unreadable. She walked through the apartment, her eyes lingering on Lena's photos, Sarah's books, the small touches that made the space theirs. The conversation started stiffly, with Linda repeating her discomfort with this lifestyle. Sarah's patience snapped. It's not a lifestyle, Mom, she said, her voice shaking. It's who I am. And Lena is who I love. Linda's eyes widened, but she didn't interrupt. For the first time, Sarah felt like her mother was listening. Lena, calm but firm, added, We're not asking you to change overnight. But we need you to see us. Linda was quiet for a long moment, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. Finally she spoke, her voice softer than Sarah expected. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. But I don't want to lose you. It wasn't acceptance, not yet, but it was a crack in the wall, a glimmer of possibility. The meeting ended with no promises, just an agreement to keep talking. As Linda left, Sarah felt a strange mix of exhaustion and hope. Lena pulled her into a hug, whispering, You were incredible. Sarah smiled, but the weight of the fight remained. They were making progress, but it was slow, and the Pride event was looming. A chance to show the world, and her family, what they'd built. The festival was a burst of color and energy, with music, food trucks, and hundreds of teens celebrating their identities. Sarah and Lena ran a booth, handing out flyers for the youth center and sharing their blog. Emily was there, cheering them on, and even Mia performed a poem she'd written, her voice strong and clear. Sarah's father showed up, surprising her with a shy smile. I'm learning, he said, and Sarah's heart swelled. But her mother's absence was a quiet ache. As the festival ended, Sarah and Lena stood together, watching the crowd disperse under a pink sunset. We're doing this, Lena said, squeezing Sarah's hand. With or without her? Sarah nodded, her heart full of love and resolve. They'd face the worst and come out stronger. Whatever came next, they'd face it together. The Pride Festival left Sarah and Lena riding a high, their hearts buoyed by the community they'd helped nurture. The youth center was buzzing with new faces, teens inspired by the event to seek support. Sarah felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known before, but the shadow of her mother's half-hearted efforts lingered. Linda's last visit had been a step, but her silence since then felt like a step back. Lena, ever the optimist, kept them moving forward. She proposed expanding their blog into a book, a collection of their photos and writings to share their story on a larger scale. Sarah was hesitant. Exposing their lives to a bigger audience felt daunting, but Lena's passion was contagious. They spent evenings brainstorming, Sarah's words flowing more freely as she wrote about love, rejection, and resilience. Lena's photos brought the words to life, capturing the raw beauty of their journey. At the youth center, Sarah grew closer to Mia, who was navigating her own family struggles. One afternoon, Mia showed up with a black eye, her voice shaking as she admitted her father had lashed out after finding her Pride Festival flyer. Sarah's heart broke, her own pain mirrored in Mia's. She and Lena brought Mia to their apartment, giving her a safe place to stay while they contacted a social worker. Holding Mia as she cried, Sarah felt a fierce protectiveness, a reminder of why their story mattered. Emily became their biggest ally, spending more time with them, and even contributing to the blog with her own reflections on learning to accept her sister. Her presence was a bridge to the family, but Sarah's father remained distant, his calls less frequent. Linda, meanwhile, sent a single text. "I'm trying to understand. Give me time." Sarah wanted to believe her, but trust was hard to rebuild. One night, as they worked on the book, Lena suggested they dedicate it to the queer youth they'd met. Like Mia. "This is bigger than us," she said, her eyes bright with purpose. Sarah agreed, but doubt crept in. What if their story wasn't enough? What if her mother's rejection was all people saw? Lena, sensing her fear, pulled her close. "We're not just telling our story," she said. "We're showing others they can tell theirs." The book took shape over weeks, a labor of love that kept them grounded. But tension was building. One evening, Sarah received an email from a local news outlet, asking to feature their story. The exposure was thrilling but terrifying. Her mother would see it, and the world would too. Lena was all in, but Sarah hesitated, haunted by the word filthy. After a long talk, they agreed to the interview, deciding to face the fear head-on. The interview was held at the youth center, the reporter captivated by their story. Sarah spoke about her mother's rejection, her voice steady but emotional, while Lena shared how their love had carried them through. The article, published online, went viral, shared by thousands across the country. Messages poured in: support, gratitude, even apologies from strangers who'd once judged people like them. But there were also hateful comments, echoes of her mother's words cutting deep. Sarah's father called the day after the article went live. "I read it," he said, his voice thick. "I'm proud of you, Sarah. I wish I'd said it sooner." Sarah cried, the words a salve on an old wound. Emily texted, too, ecstatic about the article's impact. But Linda remained silent, her absence a deafening reminder of the work still undone. As spring turned to summer, Sarah and Lena prepared for the book's release, set for late April. They planned a launch event at the same gallery where Lena had shown her photos, inviting their community, the youth center kids, and, reluctantly, Sarah's family. Sarah didn't expect her mother to come, but she sent the invitation anyway, a final olive branch. The night of the launch was electric. The gallery was packed, the air humming with excitement. Mia read a poem she'd written for the occasion, her voice strong despite her nerves. Emily helped set up, her pride in her sister palpable. Sarah's father arrived, hugging her tightly, his presence a quiet victory. Lena's photos lined the walls, Sarah's words projected on a screen, their story a beacon for everyone in the room. Halfway through the event, Sarah saw her mother walk in. Her heart stopped, her breath catching as Linda stood at the edge of the crowd, her face unreadable. Sarah froze, but Lena squeezed her hand, grounding her. Linda didn't approach, just watched, her eyes scanning the photos, the words, the love that filled the room. When the event ended, she left without a word, leaving Sarah reeling. That night Sarah couldn't sleep, her mind racing. Lena held her, whispering, "She came. That's something." Sarah nodded, but the silence felt like a rejection all over again. They'd poured their hearts into the book, into their community, into each other. But her mother's presence and her silence left a question mark, a cliffhanger in their story. The book launch marked a turning point, but not the one Sarah had hoped for. Her mother's silent appearance at the gallery haunted her, a mix of hope and frustration. Linda hadn't reached out since, and Sarah wrestled with whether to chase her or let her go. Lena, ever practical, urged her to focus on what they'd built: the book, the community, their love. "She'll come around or she won't," Lena said one morning over coffee. "But we're not waiting for her to live our lives." The book, titled Unashamed, was gaining traction, with small bookstores across Ohio stocking it and queer organizations sharing it online. Sarah and Lena were invited to speak at a regional LGBTQ+ conference, a chance to share their story with a wider audience. Sarah was nervous, but Lena's confidence carried them both. They spent days preparing, rehearsing their talk, choosing photos to project. Sarah wrote a new piece for the event, a letter to her younger self. "You are not filthy. You are worthy. You are enough." The conference, held in Cincinnati, was a whirlwind of connection. They met activists, artists, and couples who'd faced their own battles. Sarah spoke about her journey, her voice breaking as she recounted Thanksgiving, but growing stronger as she described finding her chosen family. Lena shared her photos, each one a testament to their resilience. The audience applauded, some in tears, and Sarah felt a surge of pride. Not just for herself, but for Lena, for Mia, for every kid at the youth center. Back in Columbus, life settled into a rhythm. Sarah and Lena balanced their work at the youth center with promoting the book, their days filled with purpose but also exhaustion. Mia moved in with a supportive aunt, her situation stabilizing, and Sarah felt a quiet victory in helping her find safety. Emily was a constant presence, her bond with Sarah stronger than ever. Sarah's father started visiting more, his efforts clumsy but genuine. But Linda remained a ghost, her silence a weight Sarah carried daily. One evening, as they were closing up the youth center, Sarah received a package in the mail. Inside was a copy of Unashamed, its pages worn, as if it had been read multiple times. A note was tucked inside in her mother's handwriting. "I read your book. I don't understand everything, but I'm trying. Can we talk?" Sarah's heart raced, torn between hope and fear. Lena read the note, her eyes cautious but warm. "This is big," she said. "But you decide what happens next." Sarah agonized over the decision. Part of her wanted to run to her mother, to bridge the gap, but another part remembered the pain, the word filthy still echoing. They agreed to meet at a cafe, a neutral space where Sarah could set boundaries. Lena came along, her presence a steadying force. Linda was already there when they arrived, sitting stiffly, her hands clasped around a coffee cup. She looked older, her face lined with something Sarah couldn't quite name, regret maybe, or fear. The conversation was halting, raw. Linda admitted she'd struggled with the book, with seeing Sarah's love for Lena laid bare. "I was raised to believe certain things," she said, her voice low. "It's hard to unlearn them." Sarah's chest tightened, but she pushed forward. "I'm not asking you to unlearn everything," she said. "I'm asking you to see me." For the first time Linda's eyes met hers, and Sarah saw a flicker of something, sorrow perhaps, or love. Lena spoke up, her voice gentle but firm. "We're not going anywhere, Mrs. Carter. We just want to know if you can be part of our lives." Linda didn't respond right away, but she nodded, a small gesture that felt monumental. They parted with no promises, just an agreement to meet again. Sarah felt lighter but cautious. Her mother's effort was real, but it wasn't acceptance, not yet. Back at the apartment, Sarah and Lena celebrated the small victory with a quiet night in, cooking dinner and dancing to their favorite songs. The book was selling steadily, and they were planning a second edition with new stories from the youth center kids. Sarah felt like she was finally living her truth, not just surviving it, But the question of her mother lingered, a loose thread in their story. As summer approached, Sarah and Lena decided to host a community barbecue at the youth center, a chance to bring everyone together, friends, allies, the kids they'd mentored. Emily helped organize, her enthusiasm infectious. Sarah's father promised to come, a step that warmed Sarah's heart. She sent an invitation to her mother, not expecting a response but hoping anyway. The barbecue was a success, the youth center's backyard filled with laughter, music, and the smell of grilled food. Mia and other teens ran games, their confidence a testament to the community they'd built. Sarah's father arrived bringing a homemade pie, his shy smile a quiet apology for years of distance. Sarah hugged him, feeling a piece of her family return. As the sun set, Sarah saw her mother's car pull up. Her heart stopped, but Lena's hand in hers kept her grounded. Linda stepped out, hesitating, then walked toward them, her face a mix of fear and determination. Sarah braced herself, ready for whatever came next, knowing that with Lena by her side, she could face anything. The barbecue hummed with life, the youth center's backyard a tapestry of joy and connection. Sarah stood frozen as her mother approached, Lena's hand a steady anchor in hers. Linda's presence felt like a storm cloud on the horizon, unpredictable but impossible to ignore. The crowd faded into the background, and all Sarah could hear was her own heartbeat, pounding with a mix of hope and dread. Linda stopped a few feet away, her eyes scanning the scene, teens laughing, Emily tossing a frisbee, Sarah's father chatting with a volunteer. "This is a lot," Linda said, her voice tight but not unkind. Sarah nodded, unsure how to respond. Lena stepped forward, her smile cautious but welcoming. "We're glad you came, Mrs. Carter," she said. "Want to join us?" Linda hesitated, then nodded, a small gesture that felt like a leap. They sat at a picnic table, the air thick with tension. Sarah's father joined them, his presence a quiet buffer. Linda spoke first, her words careful. "I read your book again," she said, her eyes on Sarah. "It's hard for me, but I see how much you love her." She glanced at Lena, her expression softening for a moment. Sarah's throat tightened, her mother's words a fragile bridge over a chasm of pain. The conversation wasn't easy. Linda admitted her struggle, her upbringing clashing with Sarah's truth. "I don't know if I'll ever fully understand," she said, her voice breaking. "But I don't want to lose you." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, the word filthy, echoing faintly but losing its power. She reached for her mother's hand, a gesture she hadn't made in months. "I just need you to try," she said. Linda squeezed her hand, a silent promise. Lena, ever the peacemaker, shared stories from the youth center, painting a picture of the community they'd built. Linda listened, her face a mix of curiosity and discomfort. Sarah's father chimed in, his voice gentle. "They're doing good here, Linda. You should see it." For the first time, Sarah saw her parents as a team, however fragile, working toward understanding. As the barbecue wound down, Linda stayed, helping clean up, her actions speaking louder than words. Emily hugged Sarah, whispering, "She's here." "That's huge." Sarah nodded, her heart full but cautious. Lena, sensing her turmoil, pulled her aside, kissing her softly under the fading sunlight. "We did this," she said. "Together." The next few weeks were a delicate dance. Linda started calling more, her conversations less strained. She asked questions, sometimes clumsy, about Sarah's life with Lena. Sarah answered honestly, her hope growing with each small step. Her father became a regular at the youth center, his pride in Sarah evident. Emily, now a fierce ally, started volunteering, her bond with Sarah unbreakable. Sarah and Lena kept building their life, their book inspiring more stories from others. They planned a second Pride event, bigger than the first, with Mia taking a leadership role. The youth center became a beacon, a place where kids like Mia could find safety and strength. Sarah felt like she was part of something bigger, a movement of love and resilience. One evening, Linda invited them to dinner at the family home, the same place where filthy had been hurled like a weapon. Sarah was nervous, but Lena's steady presence gave her courage. The dinner was simple, the air heavy with history, but it was different. Linda had hung one of Lena's photos in the living room, a small gesture that spoke volumes. There were no grand apologies, no tearful reconciliations, but there was progress. A family trying to heal. As they drove back to Columbus, Sarah looked at Lena, her heart full. "We made it through," she said, her voice soft but strong. Lena smiled, squeezing her hand. "We're just getting started." 5 months after that fateful Thanksgiving, Sarah's family had shown up. Not perfectly, not completely, but enough to prove that love could shift even the hardest hearts. Their story wasn't over. There would be more challenges, more fights, more moments of doubt. But Sarah knew, with Lena by her side and a community behind them, they could face anything. They weren't just surviving, they were thriving, their love a testament to the power of being seen, being heard, being unashamed.